Update. Would I be the a-hole for calling off my wedding because my fiancé is extremely frugal? Original post. I, 31 female, struggle with my fiancé's 32 male frugalness and not sure if I want to marry him anymore after a 3-year relationship. I met my fiancé 3 years ago. He came out of an abusive marriage just 2 years before we met. One of her absolute abuse was financial. She bled him dry, made him buy expensive jewelry, only to give it away or break it after an argument. Designer shoes, clothes, big house, cars, Caribbean trips. You name it, she made him pay for it. She also took him to the cleaners in the divorce. However, my fiancé is very well off. He makes far over 6 figures, almost 7. On top of that, he inherited a few millions from his grandfather, and his parents also gifted him and his siblings a few cool millions. So yes, the financial abuse was bad, but he does not suffer financially. He has more money than he will ever need. So last year, I moved into his house. I do not pay rent, but I split the bills and buy food. I pay for my own clothes and jewelry. I have a good job, and I can take care of myself. However, things have been taking a turn for the worse, and I feel miserable. His house was empty when I moved in. He had hand-me-down furniture, maybe 3 forks and 2 knives. He wouldn't put on the heating, so the house felt cold and moldy. He has no curtains, no decorations. His ex took everything not bolted down, and he was too cheap to replace it. Just imagine $1 million house like that. I am grateful that I can live in his house. It is something I could never afford myself. But I didn't want to live in squalor, so I bought some kitchen supplies, some furniture. But at some point, I realized I was dipping in my savings all the time while he did nothing. I looked into curtains, but those things are expensive, and his house has so many windows it is crazy. I didn't want to pay for this anymore, so I told him I needed a fund to furnish his house. And he blew up at me that I was just with him for his money. I pointed out all the money I spent on his house. The gifts and the trips, because it pays for nothing ever. Because he wants to be sure I am not here for the money. The fact is, if we break up, I have nothing. The house is not mine. If I spend all of my savings on his house, I will be left with absolutely nothing. He wants a prenup and I am fine with that, but I can't help but feel used. Next to that, I am jealous of his ex-wife. I feel like she got treated and I am neglected. He proposed to his ex on a cruise with a $10,000 white gold diamond ring, while I got the rhodium-plated Swarovski stuff that might cost him like $100. The proposal was at a picnic in the park I organized, paid groceries for, and slaved in the kitchen for. I almost said no out of pure disappointment. However, I am afraid to bring it up and to be called a gold digger. I don't want to be funding a millionaire's lifestyle. He loves everything as long as I pay for it. But as long as he has to pay, it is frivolous and unnecessary. I can live like a poor person by myself. But at least the fact there are literal millions lying around doesn't hang over me to bum me out, and I would just be paying for my own lifestyle. Would I be the a-hole for calling off a wedding purely of financial reasons? I love this man, but I imagine our cheap wedding in contrast to his ex, her extravaganza. Will our future kids be able to have some luxuries? Or only if I pay for it? What if ever I become a stay-at-home mom? Will I have to beg to put the heating on? Edited to answer some questions I see a lot. I know what happened to him is not made up. His family and friends told me separate stories of the things they witnessed. Not only did it confirm it, it showed me she was way more terrible than I thought. Like stealing heirloom jewelry of his grandma with Alzheimer right after she was widowed. Pretending she was gifted these things even though everyone knew grandma hated her guts. I did not realize or see he is doing the same to me as she was to him, and he is subconsciously punishing me for what was done to him. I am not trying to force a lifestyle in him where he was previously happy in. He told me prior to moving in that he left his house like this because he was depressed after his wife took everything, even the curtains, that it makes him sad and he wants a cozy home. He just didn't know where to start. His house is paid off thanks to Granddad. He isn't actually spending much on utilities either. House is very well isolated and has solar panels. It is weird to see how cheap being rich really is. I am not asking for designer furniture. IKEA all the way, and I have refurbished second-hand furniture myself. I'm actually pretty thrifty. I see where my jealousy over the ex's lifestyle might have triggered some people. So let me explain. A $10,000 ring is insane and stupid to me. I do not want that because I would fear losing it every day. I don't need an over-the-top wedding. However, it almost feels like for her, he did effort. Wanted to give her what made her happy. Put effort and thought in it. But with me, it almost feels like he wants to prove how little he can give me. He talked about how he would see the wedding, and it is cheaper than my actually financially struggling cousin's wedding. I can't help but feel like he wants to demonstrate how cheap he can treat me. And I already feel embarrassed about the family that would have been to both, and I will feel like the discount wife. I don't like to say it, but it feels he gets off on it to some extent. We are almost talking washing paper plates at this moment. Yes, I did discuss selling the mansion I don't really need and move to a more modest house, especially knowing this is the house his ex picked. But he doesn't want to do that, as he loves this house. But I feel really intimidated living in a house I could never afford anyway, and so many large windows. I haven't talked to him yet, but pause on the marriage and counseling is a must. I already am looking for individual counseling, because I realized I might indeed be too much of a people pleaser, allowing him to control me with the ghost of his ex. I am also going to separate for a while. I'm looking to rent something for a few months so I can get some space. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not a-hole. I understand you've had some trauma in your past and I'm sorry you went through that. But I can't allow you to mistreat me because of it. It burns me up inside that you gave her everything, but I have to beg for the bare minimum. I deserve to be cherished by my partner, as I have cherished you. Oomph, that hit me right in the feels. His way of coping is extremely unhealthy. What he should be doing is talking to a therapist about how he can communicate his needs to you, not shutting you out and behaving the complete opposite of how he did with his ex. He should set some healthy boundaries in how he spends his money, sure. But he also needs to acknowledge that you asking for some financial contribution to the house you live in isn't the same as his ex demanding he take her on a cruise. He needs to find some ways he can feel appreciated when he does spend money on things you benefit from. And he needs to trust that he is in full control of his money. You have no desire to take that from him. Counseling. Insist on premarital counseling. He is reacting to his divorce and his feelings about it by taking it out on you. Don't spend another dime on him or his house, but I do suggest you two do some entertaining. Invite his family and friends over, your family and friends. If he wants you to pay half, do so, but only within your budget. Invite 20 people over to sit on the floor and eat frozen lasagna and drink Crystal Light off paper plates. Without heat or air conditioning. Open the curtains and shed light on how you live. Halfway your comment, I was ready to type that I can't have anyone over. I have no furniture. But that was the point. Fun fact, I gave a big party for his birthday, and I had to rent chairs and tables because I had none. Maybe therapy can help as a final-ditch effort. I am really trying to keep a level head, and to be critical of my own wants and needs if they are not too much. But I do feel like I'm paying for his ex's sins. Why did you rent furniture? You are enabling him, covering for him just like he was an alcoholic. If he's ashamed, let him realize he's being a prick. Stop spending your own money. Seriously, your best bet is his family taking him aside and reading him the riot act. I had a similar experience with my spouse, but 100 times less obnoxious. What helped was advice and input from his family. Invite them over just for a casual dinner and let them sit on the floor. If they ask, be upfront. Oh, we don't have any household goods except what I bought. Fiancé says that if I expect him to buy a table, I'm a gold digger. Put it out on a proverbial/non-existent table. I do not have the nerve to do that. I rented furniture because I didn't want our guests to have a bad time. I wanted them to be comfortable and enjoy themselves. I am covering for him. I never realized that. Now for the update. Okay, I hope this update makes sense because I am very confused and not really doing that well at the moment. Well, Reddit, you changed my life. Thank you so much for all your ideas and insights. Honestly, I don't think I would have had the courage to do what I did without you guys. So I went to therapy, took the day off just to get my racing mind to calm down. Therapy has confirmed things you guys suspected, that I am a people pleaser. I wanted to save him, and I have internalized the idea that any effort and every penny I want him to spend on me makes me a gold digger. I will have weekly sessions to work on myself. I realized that I would have never taken this treatment from any of my exes, even though I made more than them. The idea I had to prove myself worthy to be a millionaire and not be in there for the money got into my head pretty early. I called one of his siblings I'm pretty close with and just told her everything. She was not surprised, but just sad about how unhappy he was making me. She told me that from the day we started, he had this idea that I was out of his league. He struggled to understand why I wanted to be with him, and he probably just thought it must be my money. She told me she already talked to him in the past to treat me better, and she was furious about the proposal. This information confused me a little. I was a little hurt she never discussed any of this before, but she thought it was none of her business. She also explained how she and her husband organized their finances, as he also doesn't have as much as her. I took the opportunity to pack a bag. I haven't found a place yet, but I'm going to stay with my parents. I made up my mind that I will at least want 6 months apart to get myself in order. I made sure my stuff was in the car, because honestly, I had no idea how the conversation would go. So, on to the most difficult part, the talk. I waited for him to come home. He was pretty late, but I didn't want to sleep another night on this. Pretending I was fine while I was contemplating all this just ate me up. I had written down what I wanted to say. I've never been so scared before. I didn't want to hurt him, and I didn't know how he would react. I took some advice from here. I opened that I was moving out and that I wanted to pause our engagement. He was very quiet and just sat down. I told him he really hurt me by calling me a gold digger, and that I am done walking on eggshells and feeling guilty for just wanting basic things. I told him I was unhappy and felt neglected. I also told him that after 3 years of me showing up for him, he still doesn't think I'm here for him, and it's probably not going to happen. He was quiet, didn't say anything. I told him that the constant comparing to his ex was unhealthy and unfair, that punishing me for her sins was abusive. I told him comparing her to me all the time has triggered me comparing myself to her, and starting to feel like she was worth more than me. One of the things about her was mostly ungratefulness. He would do nice things for her, but it was never enough. The thing is, he doesn't do nice things for me, and I have to be grateful for the pleasure of picking up the bill. I told him he was not ready for marriage, that I dreaded having kids with him and live like this, that I didn't trust he would take care of me if I would become a stay-at-home mom. At that point, I just called him abusive and a user. I was getting pretty angry saying all this out loud, losing my composure and script a little bit. He remained quiet with almost no emotion on his face. I stayed quiet, but nothing came out, so I decided that I would just leave. Only when I got up, he said, "Please don't go." He asked if I was pausing the wedding or calling it off. He wanted to know if it was over or if he still had a shot. I told him I wanted out of this house. I honestly don't want to live in his ex's palace of sadness anymore. I needed him to go to therapy, and especially financial therapy. I needed a separation, but told him I was open to couples counseling if he went into individual counseling. He begged me to not do the separation, but honestly, I really wanted it. I just told him to think about it, and I left him. He was finally showing some emotions as he was crying at this point. He sent me a very long text sometime early morning. Told me he was a wreck and couldn't sleep. He made all kinds of promises, that he would go into therapy, sell his house and buy a smaller one, and make sure I'm taken care of whatever happens. He said he would help me decorate and we will make a home. He again asked me to please come home, but to me it doesn't feel like home there anyway. I just feel very empty and tired. I have been sleeping most of the day. I feel guilty, but also a little bit relieved, if that makes sense. I don't know if I actually want back if it does all that. I don't know. I am a little unsteady right now, and I need some time to process. I will go back for the kitchen supplies and my TV, but I won't take anything else of the furniture. For the same reason I was unwilling to buy everything, his house is just huge, so the couch is huge. I can't take it. Good for you. You chose you. I'm sure this is unbelievably hard right now for both of you. He's incredibly damaged and needs to be more whole before he can show up for anyone else. You've sustained some damage too. You need to find yourself and learn to put yourself first. Not in a selfish way, but in a healthy way. Wish you the best, and thanks for the update. I was so concerned that you'd stay and prolong the unhappiness. That relieved is a dead giveaway. This mess just needs too much work and is too ready to let you do it for him. You are entitled to a life. Give yourself a rest, and then if it happens, try again. If you go back, it needs to be after he has started doing the work for an extended period of time, not just a few weeks. People will promise you the sun and stars, but once they get you back, it suddenly isn't a priority, and they'll start fulfilling all these promises later. Or they'll put in a real effort for a few weeks and then slide back into their old comfortable complacency. Talk about what he needs to work on, and if he does it and sticks to it for 6 months to a year, then I'd be willing to consider that things are turning around. He doesn't need to do everything perfect right away, but he needs to keep trying and continuing with therapy and strategies that you both feel comfortable with. Agreed. It needs to be months, and he needs to be able to articulate to you how his behavior affected you in detail. Not just, I see now I was being a jerk. And she needs to articulate to him again, and in much more detail, how badly his treatment affected her. They're going to have great fun in couples counseling, and so is their counselor once OP starts spewing. I think she's far too hurt to forgive him anytime soon. I'm not sure she's even in love with him anymore. Considering the length of time this has been going on, he may well have eroded her feelings for him. Hopefully, she can figure that out in therapy. I remember your previous post. Your ex's behavior was abominable. It sounds like he didn't even really take what you said on board. If you mentioned that he needs therapy and you need time, and what he offered you is pressure and only his needs. He calls you that very night because he can't sleep? You've had restless nights due to his abusive behavior. Running back to that immediately is exactly the opposite of what you outlined you need. You have already taken the big hard step, and I'm proud of you for doing what is best for you. My suggestion is that anything too big to move/take with you, he can either reimburse you for or you will sell. You need to dig yourself out of the financial hole you dug for yourself while trying to prove yourself to him. That's over. You're done being a financial doormat. You need to get your savings back to healthy and be independent of this person. I don't know if this dynamic will ever be good enough for the two of you to get back together, but I hope losing you gives him the kick he needs to deal with his trauma without traumatizing others. No other woman should have to go through what you did with this guy.